Salvete. Well, we talked about nominative case, subject, accusative case, direct object, dative case, indirect object, also shows possession and used with special verbs. And then we're finally going to be talking about, we talked also about genitive, which is the way you make a Latin noun into an adjective, basically. By changing the ending to the genitive, now you have made that noun a describer. And in English, we have to use the word of or an apostrophe s to do that. The house of the friend's house. The genitive is the describer case. Now, an ablative is also a describer, but there's a big difference between genitive and ablative. So this is also describer, describes. But whereas the genitive describes a noun, the ablative describes a verb and answers the basic question, how, or when, or where, okay? Questions like this. What kind of words answer these kind of questions in English? Adverbs do. And this is what the ablative does. Whereas the genitive is basically a way of making an a noun into an adjective, okay? The ablative is a way of making a noun into an adverb. And that's the basic function of the ablative. That's what it does by changing to this ending, okay? So let's have an example of this. Let's see here. One of the most common ones. The first one you probably learned was that it shows where you are. Okay, so we'll do where. If you say ubi est Caecilius, okay, where is Caecilius? Ubi est, okay? And we're asking a question, we want a description of where he is. Okay, we're going to describe that verb is by saying where he is. You say Caecilius est in, you got to use in, horto. Okay, now that's an ablative. Then the verb, the noun is hortus. Okay, but when you're in a place and that's showing location, you're in horto. Okay, that is an ablative case, and we call that ablative a place where. Okay, that's the official ablative of place where, the official grammatical term for that. Okay, and you use the Latin preposition in with that. Notice it's different than this kind of in. This is into a place, as in motion, but this is when you're already in the place and there's no motion going on. So this is like in horto. Okay, you get the example right there, in horto. Another one that the ablative, that's ablative of place where. Ablative has a lot of different little different functions. The basic function is makes a verb, but here's another one, is it shows how something is done. Okay, so if you want to say something like Caecilius fights, okay, and you want to say, well, how does he fight? With what thing does he fight? You could say something like this: Caecilius gladio pugnat. Oh, he fights gladio with a sword. Okay, non manu, not with his hand. Non fuste, not with a club, but gladio. Okay, and that shows how he fights. Okay, so this answers the question where. This kind of answers the question how something is done, and they call that an ablative of means, because it's the means by which you do something. Like scribo, I write scribo stilo with a pencil. That's what I'm doing right now. Scribo stilo. Non scribo gladios. It's scribo stilo. Gladius is usually, the nominative of gladio is gladius, but when you're in the ablative, you say gladio, like horto. Okay. Another question that the ablative can answer is when. Okay, and when, you just put it in the ablative case. You say quando, when. Quando Caecilius Canaan comedet. When does Caecilius eat his dinner? And you could say something like sexta hora, at the sixth hour, sexta hora. And we call that ablative of time when is the official term for that. Ablative of time when. Now notice these don't have prepositions with it. You just put the ablative all by itself. It's a very elegant way of saying something. Okay, sexta hora. Now I should add here that there's another way of telling time, which is actually an accusative. I'm going to jump over here to the accusative real quick. If you want to say how long something goes on, you use the accusative, but if you want to say when it happens, you use the ablative. And that's a little tricky. So accusative, you would say, like, how long does Caecilius eat dinner? Okay, quam diu, for how long? Quam diu Caecilius Canaan comedet. Quam diu, 3 horas, 3 hours, 3 horas. But here you use the accusative, 3 horas. That's an accusative plural for horas. Okay, and you don't have to use any preposition with it in Latin. You just say 3 horas. You might say in English for 3 hours, or you could just say he dines 3 hours. You could say for if you want. Okay, but that's the accusative. Okay, we're going to jump back over here to the ablative. We have where, how, when. Okay, here's another one. With whom. Okay, with whom is a question. With whom? In the ablative, you say I went to the movies. Okay, and you would say quo cum, with whom. Okay, you say I went to the movies cum amico. Not cum amicus, that's a nominative, is amicus, okay. Here we go. But cum amico, okay, cum amico, with my friend. And so in that case you use the Latin preposition cum, okay, plus ablative. Cum amico, and it's what we call the ablative of accompaniment, okay. Probably spelling this all wrong, sorry. The ablative of accompaniment, when you're accompanied by someone, use cum plus the ablative. Okay, so that's another use of the ablative. Another very important use of the ablative, the final one that we'll talk about here, is from where. Unde, from where. Okay, so from where, in Old English, not Old English, but in older modern English, you could say whence, okay? Whence means from where. You don't say from whence, that's redundant. Okay, so from where or whence. And this is used with several ablative, there are several prepositions with the ablative. There's 3. From where, you could say a or ab, which are the same thing, just depending on how it's used. I mean, if it has a word and starts with a vowel coming after it. Ab plus the ablative, you could say, and that basically means from, or away from. De means basically from, and specifically down from. And de can mean some other things too. We'll talk about in a second. And then also a or x, which is like exit, like out from. Okay. That in parentheses, out from. But these all basically mean from as well. Okay, and they all go with the ablative. So you say, unde Caecilius venit? From where did Caecilius come? Caecilius venit a horto, de horto, or ex horto. Okay, he came from the garden, and you can use that to show that. Now, de can also mean other things, right? It can mean concerning, or about, and it always is going to take the ablative. In fact, prepositions in Latin will always take either the accusative case, gotta go back up here, sorry, or they will take the ablative. And there's a whole bunch of other prepositions that take one of these cases, and I'm not going to spend time to get into them all now, because when you look up the preposition in the dictionary, it'll tell you which preposition it takes. And sometimes they can take either, like in is an example, it can take either. And that's going to wrap it up for the ablative. I got to cut this before it's 10 minutes.